Sports Desk at the Columbus Dispatch presents the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast. With your host, Ohio State basketball beat writer Adam Jardy.
Brandon Matisse says, "Give me the run." Here it goes. Up and away. Slam jam bam. And now he does a little dance.
Now, the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Adam Jardy from the Columbus Dispatch. Today is Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. And it's my official duty to welcome you into episode 533 of the BuckeyeXtra Men's Basketball Podcast. Welcome to Jubilation City. Welcome to the Schottenstein Center. I'm here. Is it late or is it early? You never, at some point, it all becomes a little bit of a blur, but it's a little after 2 a.m. Ohio State, a couple hours ago, it was an 8:30 tip on a Tuesday night here in Columbus, but final from the Schottenstein Center, Ohio State 86, number 24, Wisconsin 69. This was the most complete game Ohio State has played against a high-quality team all season. This was a game that Ohio State essentially led from tip to final whistle. The Badgers held the lead for a total of 44 seconds. And not only did Ohio State lead the game for 37 minutes and 45 seconds, but for roughly the last 23 minutes of the game, Ohio State had a double-digit lead. And similar to the first meeting between these teams, where no matter what Ohio State did in the second half, Wisconsin just had an answer and consistently kept Ohio State at arm's length. This was the same thing, but flipped. Ohio State played its most complete game, got contributions from pretty much everybody, and comes out of this with a significant boost to the resume. Like, it's not a quad one game, and that still is a thing for Ohio State, which will go into the weekend playing at Michigan State on Sunday and then going to Iowa next week. Still in search of that, but this is the kind of win that Ohio State has needed. This is the kind of win that settles things, and this is also the kind of win that shows you what this can look like when things are working for Ohio State. It's interesting because I didn't like this game being an 8:30 game because I felt like I spent the entire day talking myself back and forth on what I thought was going to happen tonight. Because for as bad as Ohio State's loss at Wisconsin was back on January 31st, and defensively it was very bad. That was the worst rated defensive performance of the season, second worst of the Diebler era. Only one that was worse than that was that shellacking that Auburn handed the Buckeyes in Atlanta last season. The end of the Meechie Johnson era, if you will. But I looked at that game, and I thought as the day went on, I just kept thinking to myself, Ohio State scored at a really high clip in that game. Like to score 82 points and lose by 10 on the road is kind of a bonkers way to lose. And that was on the road. And I felt like Ohio State would probably have a better overall defensive performance than it did in that first game, because Ohio State's not exactly been like rock solid defensively, but they haven't been that bad. The only teams that have really torched Ohio State defensively, Wisconsin in that game, and then the two losses to Michigan. Those are the three worst defensive performances of the season. So I really felt coming into this that Ohio State would be better defensively because they just are better defensively. That was the outlier. And I thought if Ohio State was just a few points better, and then I looked at that game and thought, well, Christoph Tilley was 0 of 8. And, all he's got to do is even have half of his season average and have Ohio State be just a little bit better defensively. And I thought it was a good setup for Ohio State to get a signature type of win. And half of that proved to be true because Ohio State was significantly better defensively. Christoph Tilley didn't really do a whole lot. And he's not at all the focal point of really what there is to talk about in this game, because Bruce Thornton and Devin Royal took center stage in this game for Ohio State. The lead to my takeaways was about Devin Royal. Certainly a significant portion of the takeaways also centers around Bruce Thornton. Both of them had significant nights. And all you got to do is look at the final box score, and it gives you the gist of it. But Bruce Thornton finished with 27 points, 24 of them after halftime, when Ohio State had a 12-point lead at the half. And I thought the Buckeyes being up 12 at halftime and Bruce Thornton having 3 points was a good sign, because it wasn't like Bruce Thornton had 3 points and he was 1 of 10 from the floor. Like, Bruce Thornton had 4 assists before he took a shot in this game, and he nearly finished with a triple-double. 27 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. All 3 of those were game-high totals in each statistical category. So he had 27. He passed 2,000 career points, moving into 3rd place all-time on the career scoring list. And barring something shocking, he will move into 2nd place this weekend at Michigan State unless the Spartans hold him to 5 points or fewer. Because Bruce Thornton is now 6 points shy of Herb Williams' career total of 2,011 points from 1978 to 1981. Thornton passed Jerry Lucas and William Buford, who are both tied for 3rd at 1,990. Will Buford was at the game. His son did the pregame OH cheer on the scoreboard. It was kind of a neat moment. So certainly Bruce's game is of note and is something we're going to talk about here in a minute. But my lead to my takeaways was Devin Royal, because Devin has been going through it lately. It hasn't looked good. His shot hasn't looked good. Even on the nights where he has put up numbers, it just hasn't been certainly what we saw. It hasn't been what we saw tonight. He finished with a season high 25. He scored 14 of Ohio State's first 24 points and assisted on a 3-pointer. So he had 17 of Ohio State's first 24 points as the Buckeyes got off to a 24-12 start. And in doing so, Devin was 6 for 6 from the floor and had 2 3-pointers in there, and finishes the game 4 of 7 from 3, 10 of 17 from the field, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. And it was a massive turnaround, bounce back performance from Devin Royal, given what we saw just a couple nights ago inside Bridgestone Arena there in Nashville. So Thornton had 27, Royal had 25, Amari Bynum had 13, and he was 3 of 4 from 3. So we're starting to see a little bit more consistency in that 3-point shot from Amari Bynum, who came into the game shooting 28.1% from 3, but is now 6 for his last 8. He was 3 of 4 against Virginia and then 3 of 4 in this game. He's made a 3 now in 4 straight games. So in his last 4 games, he is 8 for 14 from 3. Significant sign of improvement there for him. He also had 6 rebounds, which was something Jake Diebler really emphasized, because there were some big-time rebounds from Amari Bynum in this game. He did foul out, as did Christoph Tilley, who had 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 points. He only took 3 shots, passed up a couple, missed at the rim, I guess twice. Odd game from him, but it didn't hurt Ohio State, oddly enough. Ohio State got 11 points from Tayson Chapman, who played a more complete overall game, I thought, than we saw against Virginia. Second start in place of John Mobley Jr., who remained sidelined with a hand injury. Tayson played essentially 29 minutes, 11 points. Ivan Yagovin, 4 points and 6 rebounds in 14 minutes and 17 seconds off the bench. He's making strides. You can see it with him. Gabe Cupps missed 2 3-pointers in 11 minutes and 33 seconds. Puff Johnson had 4 points and a rebound and an assist and a turnover in 17 minutes and 12 seconds. And then we saw Colin White for 3 minutes and 54 seconds. He had a rebound and a turnover. And we got a Braylon Nash sighting. He got in for the last 15 seconds and was able to notch a trillion. So that's the Ohio State box score in a nutshell. Ohio State shot 54.4% from the game or from the field, 11 of 21 from 3. That's 52.4%. And the Badgers, who are one of the Big Ten's and nation's most prolific 3-point shooting and scoring teams, Wisconsin averages 83.7 points per game. That's 3rd in the Big Ten, would be the 3rd best number in school history, and finished with a total of 69 in this game. Wisconsin also averaging 11.2 3-pointers made per game, which leads the Big Ten, 9th best in the country. Wisconsin was 7 of 26 from 3 in this game. Big part of Ohio State getting out to the big lead that it did early So Ohio State in the first half, 6 of 13 from three. It's 46.2%. Wisconsin was 1 of 8. And the Badgers weren't getting to the free throw line to like make up for that. Wisconsin 1 of 2 from the free throw line in the first half. Ohio State was 2 of 2. Some weird whistles, again, kind of becoming a common theme. I feel like watching these games, but not necessarily to either team's detriment, just weird officiating all around. So Ohio State takes this 17-point win and gets ready now to go to Michigan State on Sunday. And we'll do it with certainly some confidence and improving to 9-0 now after a loss. The Buckeyes are 17-9 overall, 9-6 in the Big Ten. Wisconsin falls to 18-8 overall, 10-5 in the Big Ten. And the Buckeyes are tied on record now with Iowa and UCLA for 7th in the league. And I don't have all the tiebreakers off the top of my head here, but certainly Ohio State beat UCLA, has not yet played Iowa. So we'll see how that all would shake out. But I want to talk more about Devin Royal and about Bruce Thornton and a couple of other takeaways from this game. Before I do, I want to remind you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. If you subscribe, you'll automatically get the newest ones just as soon as our man Patrick Flaherty, the Podfather, can grab them and publish them for us. While you're subscribing or downloading, please leave a review, please click 5 stars, and please consider telling a friend. Thanks everyone who's taken the time to do all those things. Great time of year to remind people of the podcast as well. There's just a lot going on, a lot happening this time of year. I will record something else between now and the Michigan State game. We have a chance to catch our breath just a little bit. I was talking with my wife the day of, earlier yesterday on Tuesday before the Wisconsin game, and I was saying how like this stretch of games for someone who just travels and then sits there and watches and then analyzes and writes and does all the things, it's been tiring for me. You start with February 5th at Maryland, 8th against Michigan, 11th against USC, 14th in Nashville, and then the 17th here against Wisconsin. 5 games in 13 days. Like that's tough. And in the process, Ohio State loses John Mobley, but the Buckeyes go 3-2 in that 5-game stretch. That's of note, certainly. And now they'll have a chance for what would be their second winning streak against high major competition of the season as they go to Michigan State here again this weekend. Michigan State team that was just thumped by these Badgers in a shocking 92-71 game on February 13th. So Devin Royal. So the numbers are not pretty, and Devin will be one of the first people to acknowledge that because it came up very quickly in postgame. So we got Devin Royal and Bruce Thornton, and you look at Devin's performance this season and the move to the 3-point line, or the move to the 3 and his performance from the 3-point line. It's not the only indicator, but certainly that's part of the move was the belief that they could get perimeter production from him and be bigger down the lineup by having him at small forward instead of power forward. And it went pretty well for a good while from the perimeter. Devin was through the first 17 games. Let's see, Devin Royal was shooting 39.6% from 3. He was 21 for 53. He had played in 16 of those 17 games. He had missed 1 game. Entering this game in the last 8 games, he was 2 of 25 from 3. He was 0 of 5 against these Badgers back on January 31st. He had made 1 3-pointer in his, let's see, so many papers here. Devin had made 1 3-pointer in his last 7 games. And it's not just the 3-point shooting. Against the Cavaliers on a night where Ohio State's playing some of its best defense of the season and battling with the first game without John Mobley Jr. And Bruce Thornton has an all-time type of second half performance until he runs out of gas. Devin finished 4 points on 2 of 12 shooting. 0 of 2 from 3. He forced quite a few shots. He just did not play well in that game. And the word that he used for it, so he was asked about putting that game behind him and playing much better in this game. And here's the direct quote. I was in the gym right after the game, 1,000 shots, 4 a.m. because I was terrible. So asked him a little bit more. I said, like, what gym were you in? He said he was in the Ohio State practice gym. He said when they got back from Nashville, he went in there and started putting shots up. He said, I let my team down a little bit last game. I had to go in the gym and work it off. I feel like you can work off a bad game, and that's what I did. Came out, and I had a good game. Obviously, when I asked him, well, what did it feel like when the first one went in? He said, it felt good. So the shots I've been putting in felt good. Hitting those shots felt big, felt back to normal. So it wasn't just that he was hitting from three, but it was that they were establishing him down low, and they seemed purposeful about it, and it got Devin going. So it was 4-2, and in Ohio State's third possession, Devin gets the ball in the paint, and he was matched up with John Blackwell, backed him down, and scored in the paint. Jumper. Next possession, Amari Bynum hits a three-pointer. It's 7-6 Ohio State. Ohio State would not trail for the remainder here. And then after a Blackwell miss, Devin battled and got the rebound. Ohio State comes down the floor. Devin hits a three. It's 10-6 Ohio State. Next possession, Ohio State gives up 2 offensive rebounds, but Tayson Chapman comes up with a steal. Bruce Thornton gets the ball right to Devin on the block. He scores. It's 12-6. Wisconsin gets a quick dunk against Ohio State's zone. Tayson Chapman hits a jumper. It's 14-8. Another jumper from Wisconsin against the zone. It's 14-10. 2 possessions later, as we get to the under 16 media timeout, and Wisconsin has a 6-1 advantage in rebounding to this point. Devin just buried his guy under the bucket, and Christoph Tilley got the ball on like the right elbow and threw like a perfect kind of reach around bounce pass to Devin on the block, who sealed off his man, took the ball, scored. It's 16-10. Devin's starting to roll a little bit. Thornton hits a 3 on the next possession. It's 19-10. Next possession, Devin hits another 3. It's 22-10. Wisconsin calls timeout with 13:30 to go. Devin's feeling it. The offense is clicking at this point. And after the timeout, Wisconsin scores to cut it to 10, and then Devin scores again on an assist from Christoph Tilley, 24-12. Tilley did not have the most impactful offensive night. He fouled out, but he had some important assists early that enabled Devin to get going and to feel comfortable and get that shot falling. And the difference that made for this Ohio State team was almost immeasurable. This is like the version of Devin Royal that we've seen at times, and we've seen for not just stretches in games, but stretches of games. It made the performance against Virginia all the more jarring, because that seemed like a moment where, with Junie being out, you would think, okay, Bruce and Devin will both have to elevate, and then you try to get what you can get from other guys. And it just never got going for Devin. So after the press conference, and Jake Diebler talked about Devin, about his shooting, about his approach to the game. But I was able to get a couple extra minutes with Jake to talk about it. And Jake was very clear that it wasn't just that, like, okay, he went and he put some shots up, but he told me he took ownership over that Virginia game. He said he responded like good players do. He said we needed him to do that. And he talked about, like, he really had to have a clear mind and just pouring yourself into the team and not worrying about anything else, not thinking about anything else. He said that's just part of him taking, like, ownership. We've heard a lot about Devin Royal's leadership on this team and how that has evolved as the season has gone on. And this was a pretty strong example or glimpse into what that looks like. And Diebler said, like, they had some pretty pointed talks, but he said, like, he knows I've got his back. And that's, like, they have a strong relationship to where he could coach him hard, and he could, like, you know, go over those mistakes in that Virginia game and just talk about, like, spots where you just have to be better. And we know you can be better. And then he came out against a Wisconsin team that had run Ohio State almost off the floor with 92 points and played a much better all-around game and rebounded statistically at such a, I don't mean rebounded as in grabbing rebounds, although he did better with that as well. He said, so he finished with 5 rebounds, which was right around his season average. He had 5 against Virginia as well. But then I also thought this was interesting. So when we talked to Greg Gard, he was talking about Ohio State, and he made reference to the fact that, like, you know, Devin Royal goes 4 of 7 from 3, and Amari Bynum goes 3 of 4 from 3. And the way that sort of changes a couple of things. He said, when those guys knock down threes, it puts more pressure on your defense to get stretched out. And then you let a guy like Bruce Thornton play downhill, and he's a load when you have to play him one-on-one downhill. He said, as far as Royal and Bynum went, he said, we know they can shoot threes, but you have to be able to guard both. You have to be able to keep the ball out of the paint, specifically with Thornton. Then you've got to be able to recover. And he talked about how, like, Devin hit like a step back in the second half, and how those are the kinds of shots you make when you start getting comfortable by scoring around the rim. He just felt like they gave them too many easy looks around the rim. Gard was he was insightful. He was clearly not happy with his team. He's pretty direct. He just, like, something about, like, when did you know this wouldn't be your night? And he said, when we threw the ball up. He said, they're much more aggressive, much more physical than we were. He said, I didn't think we played with good pace. We got stagnant. I didn't think our bigs ran. We didn't push the ball in transition like we have. When we did, he said, we haven't thrown the ball to nobody like we did in this game. Wisconsin finished with 12 turnovers, and Ohio State had 14 turnovers and ended up being a 16-15 advantage in points off those turnovers for Ohio State. But Ohio State turned Wisconsin over. There were quite a few moments where it just felt like, yeah, Wisconsin got mixed up and they just chucked the ball out of bounds. I thought Ohio State's execution out of timeouts was better in this game. They just seemed to have a jump on Wisconsin, like, right from the get-go. And some of that, I'm sure, was like shots going in. And Devin Royal had a big say in that. And so what was then interesting to me was something that Bruce Thornton said about Devin and about Amari and the impact that they had. So Bruce said, watching how Wisconsin plays defense, if they don't feel like somebody's making a lot of threes or shooting confident, they sag off. He said, I always tell our guys to stay ready. I feel like they disrespected some of our guys from the three-point line. We've been working on that shot nonstop. And Gard said, Royal, he said, those are confident shots that he developed over making shots in the first half. He got the ball point blank way too much early. They were posting him. I don't think we did a good job pressuring him and working the post to keep it out of there. He said when he's shooting layups, that builds a lot of confidence for an offensive player. So all of this was started by just a brutal loss to Virginia, a game that Ohio State really felt like it was right there. It could have won. It should have won. And Ohio State ends up going home, getting back. They have very little time to really prep and prepare for Wisconsin. Diebler talked about, like, mental reps and having to, like, do what they could to try to get guys off their feet, but also be prepared for the game. And Devin Royal, before going to bed, after getting back from the Virginia game, put up 1,000 shots in the Schottenstein Center. And I think that says a lot. And that was why it ended up being the lead to my post-game takeaways, because I thought that was a significant development for Ohio State. And for this team to get where it wants to be, it needs Devin Royal contributing at a high level. And that might not mean putting up 25 a night, but maybe it does. And for Ohio State to have a performance like this with John Mobley sidelined and with Brandon Knoll unavailable still, we saw some funky lineups in this game, people. There's one point I looked out there, and this was Ohio State, like, had this one stretch where it threatened to let Wisconsin make it interesting. So it's 24-12 early. Then Ohio State would go empty on 6 straight possessions before Devin Royal scores on the right block. And in this sequence, it was still an 11-point lead for Ohio State when Devin scored. And then Wisconsin would get it to 6. That was the closest it would be. It was 30-24 before an Amari Bynum three-pointer. And then Tayson Chapman with a deep three-pointer. He had, like, a nice jab step, and he buries the 3. That put Ohio State up 12. And that was with roughly 3 minutes left in the first half. And then it was a double-digit lead for the remainder there. But, like, I looked out on the floor for a couple of minutes there, and it was a lineup of Gabe Cupps, Tayson Chapman, Puff Johnson, Amari Bynum, and Ivan Yagovin. And I just thought, like, boy, I didn't think I'd ever really see that grouping out there together, and it didn't work super great. One thing about Puff, we will get some sort of final ruling on his status going forward soon. Like, it could, by the time you hear this, it might have already been announced, the verdict in his court case. So I would expect news on that soon. Stay tuned for that. And then there was another lineup here toward the end of the first half where it was, I don't know why I wrote this down. Thornton, Chapman, Puff, Royal, and Bynum. That's why, because they went small. And we saw Ohio State have some success with that. I thought it was worth noting. This is a possession I meant to ask about this and ran out of time. So with 1:05 to go, it's 38-26, and we just get to the under 4 timeout. It was weird. Like, they just kept playing and playing, and there wasn't a whistle. So we get to the under 4 timeout with 1:05 to go. Wisconsin gets the ball, and whatever they thought Ohio State was going to do defensively was the opposite of what the Buckeyes did, because the Badgers were lost. And you could, like, the crowd started to get into it. You could feel that, like, Wisconsin was feeling the pressure in that moment. And they end up getting the ball to Braden Carrington, who finished this game with 20 points. He was 6 of 14 from the floor, 5 of 12 from 3. But he did not hit this three-pointer because Devin Royal came up with the block. And I thought this was an incredibly detailed defensive possession for Ohio State, where they flummoxed the Badgers. And in the final seconds, like, Devin knew what was coming and was able to block the three-pointer without committing a foul. It was impressive. There was another possession. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Gabe Cupps ended up matched up on the block with, I believe it was Nolan Winter, the 7-footer for the Badgers, who finished with 10 points and 7 boards. And Cupps held his ground and did not allow the big guy to score over him. And, you know, we still see like there were at least 2 times in this game where, like, Cupps did a really good job of, like, getting past his man and then getting to that one spot that he likes to get to along the baseline, where he then picks up his dribble and there's nowhere to go, and it usually results in a turnover. Like, that happened again in this game. But he played some rock solid defense against a guy who was like a foot taller than him. And I thought that was impressive. There was some really good post defense from one of the smallest guys on Ohio State's roster. Should also mention, like, there was a point where they got the ball to Colin White, and he was wide open for a rhythm 3, and he passed it up, and he dribbled into the paint. And I don't remember how the possession ended, but, like, you can see, like, whereas, like, someone like Tayson Chapman is playing with a ton of confidence right now, it's not there for Colin. You can see it. And that's been tough. I think we continue to see the lack of an off season for Colin White and the impact that has had on him trying to carve out a role on this team. But moving on here to Bruce Thornton. So massive night for him, certainly. And, you know, kind of nice to see him have, like, some of these milestone type of performances in front of a home crowd. He passes Jerry Lucas and Will Buford. Again, Will Buford was in the crowd to see it, and they had a really nice video they played on the scoreboard. I have a video of it on my Instagram page. I think Ohio State probably also posted a better quality version of the video, but you can see that online. Bruce had a good quote about it. He said, "The thing my mom told me was, it's crazy. You didn't even score 2,000 points in high school. It's kind of backwards." Pretty wild to think about, too, when you really, like, look at it. So Thornton gets to, or he gets to 2,000 points on the same night that he passes those two guys. Played in 120. Oh, where do I have this written down? This was Bruce Thornton's 128th career game. Will Buford got to his scoring total in 145 games. Jerry Lucas got there in 82 games to score 1,990 points, finished third all time at Ohio State, although now fourth, tied for fourth. So next up on the career scoring total, Herb Williams is second with 2,011 points. And then obviously the big one, Dennis Hopson's 2,096 points. So Bruce Thornton is 91 points away from tying Dennis Hopson for the all-time career scoring record at Ohio State. So 91 points, and the Buckeyes have 5 games remaining in the regular season. So he needs 18.2 points a game to get there on senior day. Home against Indiana, massive game for NCAA tournament implications. Bruce Thornton bobblehead night. The first 2,000 fans are going to get a Bruce Thornton bobblehead. I might have to buy a ticket. I think that's pretty neat. That's the first time they've made a bobblehead for a player that I've covered. I think that's pretty cool. I do like a good bobblehead. They had pictures of that on the scoreboard before the game, and I posted those to my Instagram as well. As far as the defense goes, like I said, this was the first meeting between these teams was the worst statistical performance for the Buckeyes this season. 130.9 points allowed per 100 possessions. This was not that. It was 100.3 points per 100 possessions. That's the 8th best defensive game of the season for Ohio State, and it's 3rd best against high major competition this season. And both Bruce and Devin talked about feeling like the Virginia game was a step in the right direction, that even though Ohio State didn't win, they felt like they showed a couple of things. And that when I asked Jake Diebler about it, he pointed to 2 things. He pointed to rebounding, and he pointed to better communication. This is a team that is starting to talk better, to understand more what it needs to do defensively in order to, or what it needs to do on the glass rather, to be able to play defense at a high level, or at least at a high enough level. We talk about it all the time, how many times I've cited on the podcast, but the conversation that I had during the preseason about how sometimes the best defense is being up 15, and we saw that here. So if you go over to barttorvik.com, which I've talked about on here, you can adjust all the data based on like just a certain segment of time. So if you just look at from games played on Valentine's Day through games played tonight on the 17th, well, in that very small stretch, even though Ohio State went 1-1, the Buckeyes ranked 10th nationally, combining offense and defense. And the Buckeyes have the number 25 offense in those 2 games. So we are seeing some improvement from the Buckeyes from a defensive side as we get further here into the season, coming down the stretch here. I'm trying to pull up one more thing here. I mean, Ohio State's adjusted defense has been mostly flat for the season, but is definitely, when like you can look at graphs and stuff, and it's definitely ticking upward right now, which will certainly be put to the test anew as the Buckeyes go to Michigan State. The Spartans had no problems taking care of UCLA tonight, 82-59 at home. Mick Cronin was less than pleased. There's some vintage Mick post-game quotes that came out of the very terse availability that he had after that loss. Getting weird there with Mick Cronin in UCLA for sure. But the Spartans are 40th in adjusted offensive efficiency and 6th in adjusted defensive efficiency. They're 7th in Big Ten play. They're 7th in offense and 2nd in defense. Ohio State, as we sit here right now, 5th in the Big Ten in offense and 12th in defense. This was a big statistical positive for Ohio State when it comes to its defense. Last 2 things to go over here real quickly. One, another poor crowd, and I think some of that certainly Tuesday night, 8:30 tip. You're just not going to draw well anymore, but they barely broke 9,000. It got loud. There were a couple of moments here, like Amari Bynum had a really impressive block on a Braden Carrington drive, And like during the first half, as the first half was winding, and it got loud. Like there were a couple of moments where I did feel like it was a pretty decent crowd, even if it wasn't super massive. And then I would be remiss to end the podcast if I didn't point out that like this was another impressive game from Tayson Chapman. And I thought, as opposed to the other night where it looked like he got a little worn down, and certainly he played 30 minutes, and it was more than 10 minutes more than his previous career high. And it was against a Virginia team that was just pressuring like the entirety of the game. Wisconsin didn't do that. And Diebler, talking about Tayson, said that he's getting used to playing more minutes. He said he looked more comfortable out there the longer the game went. He said we need some time. We've obviously got to get healthy. These guys deserve a ton of credit. They battled a lot. He said, we had guys who played today who didn't practice live yesterday. He said, I want to acknowledge the toughness our team has shown in the last week or so. They earned the day off tomorrow for sure. I should also mention, I meant to say this on the last podcast, but that Virginia game, Thornton was sick. And it would have been much more of a deal if they had won, and it would have been his flu game. But he was definitely under the weather for that game. I was told that pregame, and then all the things that happened and all of the stuff, it slipped my mind when I was doing that podcast. So just worth mentioning, I suppose. So something else about like just this game and how much Ohio State may have needed it. Diebler said it proved we can beat a good team. He said this was really important for us because of the level Wisconsin's been playing recently. He said you look at their last couple of wins. He said, I was coaching so hard in the second half because I've been watching what they're capable of in such a short burst. He said, their backcourt is high level. The score was almost irrelevant. We had to stay the course and keep doing our job. And then one more thing here as far as Tayson Chapman goes. Diebler said, like, how much he's improved recently, steady improvement. And I thought this was interesting. He said, Tayson's got a high basketball IQ. He struggled with communication and some things that have taken some time. I forget to have to remind myself that I know he's older, but he hasn't played. And this is what I thought was interesting. He said, quote, we had to draw a line in the sand and get him to do some things to really help us get over the hump. Or had to do some things to really help us get over the hump. Once he started doing that, I had to follow through on my end. I told him, show me improvement. He's done that defensively. I've been impressed with him taking ownership of the defense. He's watching film. He's doing all the things good players do. He said, we're seeing steady growth. Tonight, there was a play he messed up. He said, I coached him. He took ownership, and I had great confidence putting him back in there to execute the next time. That's a great sign for our team and for him personally. And then one more thing about like what this showed or what this performance might have meant. And I asked Bruce, like, is this a glimpse of like what you guys believe the ceiling looks like? He said, it's definitely like a glimpse. He said, it's funny because we don't have our whole team. He said, it just shows what we're capable of. He said, with the ranked teams, it just took us a little minute. But the guys we have, we're staying the course. We'll celebrate tonight and move on because we got another big-time game coming up. Playing at Michigan State's not easy, but me and Dev definitely won there before. It's an opportunity we definitely want to take. And that seems like probably a good place to end this one. So to quote the great OAR, it's nearly 3 a.m. and I want to go to bed. So I'm going to wrap this one up now. I'll have some bracketology updates and things like that on the website here in the next day or two. And certainly I've got one or two stories coming out of this game that I think are worth tracking down and writing here. So look for more stuff coming up here at dispatch.com. Like the players, I'm probably going to also try to squeeze in a day off. But there's a lot going on this time of year. It's an awesome time of year. We are like a month from having a bracket in our hands, roughly. And it's the best time of year to be a college basketball fan and to be covering this sport. And I'm really excited for whatever lies ahead here as this season winds down. So as always, you can send along your questions, your comments, your love notes, your hate mail, and otherwise constructive criticism to me at Adam Jardy on Twitter or ajardy@dispatch.com. Thank you again for listening. Thanks to Patrick Flaherty, the Podfather, for getting this out to you. I'll record something on Friday that we can have for the weekend leading into the Michigan State game. So look for that in your feed before the weekend. So until we get there, be kind, take care, and we'll talk soon.
Be sure and subscribe to the Buckeye Extra podcast in the iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, or on Stitcher.